On today's Hiwatt Soundbite, we're breaking down a remix from the archives. Well, I am so excited to share a brand new mix and breakdown of one of my favorite remixes that I've ever gotten up to. And I had to dig deep in the archives for this one. I'm talking about the Humble Brothers remix of Linkin Park's One Step Closer, originally released on their 2002 platinum-selling Reanimation. Oh man, it has been almost 20 years since Traz and I did this remix, and yet over the last couple of days, I was somehow able to restore and recall this thing, and I'm so excited to dive into it. So let's take a few minutes up front and listen down to this new mix, and then we'll come back and break down this mix in individual parts. And no question, this mix is dedicated to Chester. Check this out. Well, what an absolute blast it was to remix that track, and what a privilege it was to be able to contribute something to that remix album. I mean, Mike and the guys were so cool to Traz and I, right at the time that their career was absolutely exploding. They were literally helping their friends out and sort of bringing them along on the ride through this remix album. I mean, who does that, right? And they didn't know us from anybody, but they gave us a shot and they worked really closely with us on this remix. And I'll never forget that experience. It was wonderful. So let's dive into this track. Well, one thing that became abundantly clear after working on these tracks for a couple of days, I need to go dig out my Revox tape echo. I'm talking about an old Revox tape machine that I used to use as a tape echo. And what a signature sound that thing used to create. I mean, it's plastered all over this mix, and it absolutely has inspired me to dig that tape machine out and do a full rebuild on it. In fact, I think we'll rebuild that Revox as a little side project right here on the channel. What a blast that would be. Well, during the whole intro of this remix, almost all of the sounds are coming from a baked track that I did with that Revox. Check this thing out. Here's another Revox track. Oh yeah, what a cool vocal effect printed onto a Revox track and then just cut up and reversed in sections, right? Well, here's a track called 303 Frappuccino. I remember that this thing came from that really cool program called Rebirth. Remember that emulation of the old 303? So cool. You know, that's our very own and late Saki Kaskas playing that bass part. You know, sadly, and 20 years later, two of the contributors that are on this track are no longer with us. You know, of course, Chester, rest in peace, and Saki Kaskas, talking about the Humble Brothers guitar player extraordinaire that we used exclusively for almost a decade. You know, neither one of those great souls are with us today, but wow, what serious contributions they both made to this business. Yeah, as always, Saki was a very important part of this remix. Just always loved Saki's guitar tone, and he was a very, very important part of the Humble Brothers for a very long time. So Chester and Saki, rest in peace, my friends. What a couple of heavyweights in this business. Unreal. Here's 5 or 6 tracks making up the main drum beat. Yeah, big, heavy drum beat at 96 BPM. It just has this killer feel. I really dig Chester's vocal sound. We really processed this with a lot of distortion and added some cool delay effects. Check it.
I cannot take this anymore. Saying everything I said before. All these words, they make no sense. I find bliss in ignorance. Less I hear, the less you say. You'll find that anyway. I find the answers on so.
Yeah, I love that mono delay sound on Chester's voice. That's my Lexicon PCM42. And I've talked about this in past sessions, how much I love that delay for creating effects just like this. It's so, so cool. Yeah, I've talked about that delay specifically in the past, how it's got a soft limiter on the feedback loop, on the input to that delay. So absolutely, you could just crank the feedback full blast on that thing, and it creates a really smooth and beautiful echo. It's just so, so cool. Yeah, repeating that over and over again so many times in this section was so fun, and it created a really cool hole for that big analog synth to come barreling in, right? And again, the Revox being the source of all these cool delays. What a powerful voice Chester had. It's almost like he had a built-in distortion generator that he could just flip the switch on anytime. Just unreal. Well, that leads right into a very cool break and sort of a bridge section that Traz and I added to this remix. And it must have really inspired the guys, because shortly after we delivered this thing, they got back to us and said that Jonathan Davis of Korn was going to be featured in this bridge section and that he was working on vocal tracks. Oh man, I am a big fan, so I got so excited when those guys delivered all these vocal tracks to us. Check these out. I love that breakdown section and what Jonathan got up to. But when they come out of that breakdown into this next thing, oh man, so heavy. What an awesome collaboration that was, you know, Chester and Jonathan's voice together, so powerful. And can you imagine, as a remixer, working with a band and remixing their track, and then suddenly they're telling you like Jonathan Davis is gonna jump in as well? Oh man, it was almost surreal at that time in our career, right? To be able to work with such heavyweights, and then to learn that those heavyweights are such cool people, right? Unbelievable experience, and one that I'll never forget for sure. Kind of a classic ending to a Humble Brothers remix, you know? Where do you go when you're already at 11? Just drop an atomic bomb on the end of the mix. Boom! Well, thank you very much for sitting in on today's session, and please stay tuned because we're going to have a blast breaking down more of these remixes from the archives.